right, welcome to this episode of the Speak Up, Scale Up podcast. My name is Lee, and this is Angus.
Hello, everybody.
Today, we're going to be talking about presentation skills. Now, Angus, I got a question for you. Have you ever been to a presentation where the person on stage is reading or they're speaking and they sound like a robot?
Yeah, actually, last week I encountered that.
Oh, tell me about it. What happened?
Yeah, so I think what happened was this person gives the same speech to a large number of people, a large number of events. So basically, he cycles through the speech over and over. And basically, what that did was it got him into a pattern or a way of speaking
Mm.
that he can't get out of. And although he may feel confident that, like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to do what I usually do, it's like the speech is so ingrained that it's boring to everybody else.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like this person memorized a lot of their speech and like they already know they've done it so many times. It's kind of like muscle memory. But what did you see in the audience? What were people doing?
They were falling asleep, they were chatting with their friends, or, maybe, looking down at their phone and like,
Yeah.
just checked out.
Exactly. This happens all the time. I've been to a few presentations myself, whether it be startup pitches or somebody presenting about some topic, and they're either reading and then
Mm,
using that reading voice, or they just don't have the skills to use vocal variety in order to keep the
mm,
audience engaged.
mm.
With your background in acting, can you talk to us a little bit about what vocal variety means?
Yeah, vocal variety is just changing the pitch of your voice to make sure that you hit some highs and lows so that your voice has more melody to it. And when your voice has melody, it's more interesting to listen to.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree. When you listen to somebody who's just monotone or, doesn't have that much vocal variety, it could put you to sleep. And, Japanese is a very monotone language, right? So I think that's where people get confused. It's like, okay, I'm speaking English, but that's not enough. What do we
Mm.
need to do in order to make sure that we have an engaged audience each time? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that when you practice, you really think about the vocal variety and other that might engage the audience, such as speed and things like that. Because what happens is when people practice, they usually only focus on memorizing the lines, because that's the thing most people are afraid of, right? Just
Mhm.
not remembering their lines. But actually, when you practice, it's important to add those vocal inflections. It's important to add the emphasis because then the monotone voice doesn't become your muscle memory, but the inflections and the melody become your muscle memory.
Yeah, and I've heard from various experts online and some other things that I've personally learned to fix my presentation skills that you can even practice with doing various different types of like voices. Saw was you can say your lines or your speech in a very high voice and in a very low voice and then up and down, just to get in the habit of using that whole entire range of voices. Have you come across anything like that in your acting?
Yeah, absolutely. I something that we practice is to make sure that we over exaggerate first because it's much easier to do things over the top and then scale it down rather than push somebody to hit the level that they need to hit. So
Mm.
something that we would do for vocal exercises, since we're actors, we have a creative spin on it, but we pretend that we're holding a ball, right? And
Mhm.
then we go, and then when we swing the ball down low, we use our low voice. And then when we throw the ball up, we use our high voice. And then when we catch it, we use a low and wee and a wee. And you might be wondering, oh, I don't want people to think I'm a crazy person doing this wee wee in the park. But
Yeah.
actually, if you can find a space by yourself and practice that, it allows your voice to be more flexible and it allows you to get rid of that embarrassment that you might feel about saying those high pitches and saying those low pitches.
That's right. It's super important to remember that that's just practice. You can do it anywhere. It can be at home, you can be in a park or wherever where you're allowed to speak those loud tones, for example.
Mm.
No, the reason why this is such an important topic is because I feel a lot of presenters go up on stage and they don't connect with the audience. One of the
Mm,
things that I teach in my classes is how to be like more unexpected. And what do I mean by that? Using your vocal like range in a way that the audience isn't expecting, right? Might be
mm,
talking about a particular boring topic, or you might be talking about something that's very technical. But if you raise your voice and
mm,
scare the audience a little bit, they'll be like, oh, oh, what was that? Right? Then they
mm,
pay attention. Really crazy stat. There's this thing called primacy and recency.
mm,
Primacy means that we usually remember the first thing that we hear. So that's why the hook in the last video that we did was super important, right? And then recency is the most recent thing, the last thing that they hear. So everything
mm,
else in between, right, is very gray or cloudy. So to
mm,
use unexpectedness throughout your presentation or pitch with your vocal variety, could be visuals, could be some body language cue you're using, is really helpful. Have you
mm.
seen this before as well?
A lot of people focus on the beginning and the end, but sprinkling that those moments of tension and a variety in between the story is really important. As an actor, when we analyze stories that we tell, we think about what are the spikes within the story that continue to keep the audience engaged and hooked. And when you hit those spikes, it's really important to shift the tone that you're going through.
Mhm.
And I think those little moments will keep the audience engaged. It will keep your story from feeling laggy and boring, and it'll keep it in a sense that the story is alive and constantly throwing new things at you.
And now another thing that people need to think about with their voice especially is that it's not what you say, but how you say it that matters, right?
Mm,
So what do I mean by this? Especially it could be in your hook or a very important fact that you're trying to portray to the audience. You want to use your voice in a way that emphasizes the points that you're trying to say. And
mm,
that could be like slowing down and using a lower pitch when you're talking
mm,
about something serious. But then when you're
mm,
talking about something exciting, you might talk a little bit faster and a little bit louder. Especially if you're in a startup and you're pitching your startup, the audience needs to feel that you're passionate about your
mm,
product or service, right? So
mm.
getting that out in your voice is super helpful. I think that the people that do that the best are usually the ones that people want to go see over and over and over again.
I I think there are people that naturally bring that passion out, and so they don't have to practice it and they don't have to practice vocal melody because they are naturally very expressive and very charming. But for people that aren't, I don't want you to feel like it is impossible for you to adjust. You just have to change your mindset a little bit and make those adjustments to make sure that you do the things that you need to do to capture the audience's attention. And one thing that I do recommend is marking your script. So if you have a script, uh, make little notes on where you want to slow down, where you want to emphasize, where you want to speak with urgency and command. Making those little notes in your script will help you remember where you need to really kick it into gear.
Absolutely. And I actually would recommend everyone look at some TED Talks because TED
Mm,
Talks are some of the best speeches that you'll ever see.
mhm,
And they go through a pretty rigorous training process in order to, actually be out on stage. So when you see them, you'll see the vocal variety a
mm,
lot. And I'll actually link another video in the description that's a great example of this
mhm.
for you all to see. So yes, TED Talks are great inspiration and they can also help you understand how to use your voice in a better way. But like you said, also practicing in private area or something makes it all the difference. Any last tips that you think that you would give to the audience?
Yeah, so earlier I talked about how we actors like to do the ball throwing technique. If that's a little difficult for you, if that's a little too much, feel free to sing. We all like music, hum a little tune by yourself or find a space by yourself where you can sing out loud because singing forces us to be more melodious with our voice.
Mm.
So, yeah, sing.
Exactly, training those vocal cords for that wide range. Exactly. This has been another episode of the Speak Up, Scale Up podcast. Angus and I are actually hosting an online presentation skills workshop where we'll go through tone of voice, your body language, and how to be more confident on stage. So if you're interested, we're going to link that in the description below, and hopefully you can join us to level up your skill set.